The wagon moved slowly down. Samuel sat at the front, holding the reins. Behind him, in a wooden cart, were 3 fillies. They had not eaten since the auction house.
Samuel Morgan stood outside the auction house and took a deep breath. The air was hot and dry. It smelled like dust, horse sweat, and broken dreams. He could hear the voices of men inside, loud, rough, always ready to make money. He had $1,500 in his pocket. That was all the money he had left in the world. 2 years ago, Samuel had owned a beautiful ranch with 200 acres of land. He had 50 head of cattle. He had a house with a real roof. He had a future. But the drought came, the worst drought anyone had ever seen. For 18 months, there was no rain. The grass died. The water dried up. The cattle got thin and weak. Then they died one by one. Samuel sold his cattle to buy food. He sold his equipment to pay the bank. He worked on other people's ranches just to survive. Then the bank came and took his land anyway. They said he owed too much money. Samuel had nothing to say to them. He was just a man who had lost everything. His father had died 10 years ago. His father had always told him, "Samuel, land is everything. If you have good land, you have a future. You have hope." His father had left him that ranch. Now he was gone. Samuel's mother had died too, 5 years back. Before she died, she told him something he never forgot. She said, "Son, the world will break your heart. People will forget you. But there are creatures on this earth that remember kindness. Never forget that." Now Samuel was walking into an auction house with $1,500 money from selling the last piece of land to a man named Garrett who wanted to build a town. Samuel had walked that land one last time. He had sat under the old oak tree where he used to play as a child. He had cried for 2 hours. Then he walked away without looking back. The auction house was a big wooden building with a dirt floor. It was loud and hot and full of men who didn't care about anything but money. Men stood in small groups, talking about horses like they were just things to buy and sell. Samuel had never felt comfortable in places like this. He was a man who loved horses. He understood them. But these men? They only understood profit. Samuel walked slowly through the building. There were good horses, here strong horses with shiny coats and bright eyes. A red stallion stood in one pen. A black moray with perfect shape stood in another. These horses would sell for good money to rich people from the city. Samuel watched and said nothing. Then he saw them. In the back corner, in a pen by itself, stood 3 fillies. They were young, maybe 2 or 3 years old, but they looked old. Their coats were dull and matted. Their ribs showed through their skin. They were thin in a way that meant hunger, not just age. One of them had a long scar on her neck. Another had scars on her legs. The third one stood in the middle, her head down, her eyes looking at nothing. Samuel felt something in his chest. It was like his heart was waking up from a long sleep. He walked over to the pen and looked at them carefully. The first filly was dark brown, almost black. She had angry eyes. When Samuel stepped closer, she showed her teeth and made a mean sound. A man nearby laughed. "That one bites," the man said. "Bites hard, too. She'll take your finger clean off if you're not careful." The second filly was lighter colored, like dust. She stood in the corner and didn't move. Her eyes were empty. She looked scared. The third filly was the smallest. Her color was a pale brown, like dried roses. She was so thin that Samuel could count her ribs from 10 feet away. She had a long, thin neck and eyes that looked sadder than any animal Samuel had ever seen. Samuel stood there for a long time, just looking at them. A man in a black hat and vest came over. Samuel recognized him. This was the auctioneer, the man who would sell these horses. "You thinking about those 3?" the auctioneer asked, and he laughed. It was not a kind laugh. "Tell me about them," Samuel said quietly. The auctioneer spit on the ground. Not much to tell. They came here from a man up north who was going out of business. He couldn't sell them, so he brought them here. The dark one, she's got a mean temperament. Bites, kicks, won't cooperate. The light one won't move right. Something's wrong with her. Won't walk correct, won't run. She's just broken inside. Won't eat much either. He pointed to the smallest one. And that one, the little rose one, she's the worst. She's skinny, weak, won't eat right, won't drink right. She just stands there like she's waiting to die. Honestly, most people would take her out back and shoot her. Save everybody trouble. Samuel's hands made into fists. How much? Samuel asked. What? The auctioneer looked surprised. How much for all three? The auctioneer laughed again. You serious? These are worthless horses, friend. But if you want them, he thought for a moment, I'll give you all three for $400. That's a gift. I'm doing you a favor getting them out of here. Samuel looked at the three fillies again. The dark one was watching him now, her ears back, ready to bite. The light one still hadn't moved. And the little rose-colored one, she looked up at Samuel. Her eyes met his eyes. For just 1 second, Samuel saw something in those eyes. He saw pain. He saw loneliness. He saw something that understood what it meant to lose everything. He saw himself. Samuel reached into his pocket. He had $1,500. That was money he was supposed to use to buy food, to rent a small room, to survive the next few months while he found work. It was all he had. He counted out $400. His hands were shaking. I'll take them, Samuel said. The auctioneer's face showed surprise. Then he smiled like he had just won something important. Your funeral, friend, he said, and he took the money. Samuel walked over to the pen. The three fillies watched him. The dark one snapped at the air. The light one moved to the side. But the little rose one, she took one step forward. Samuel put his hand out slowly, very slowly. The little filly looked at his hand for a long time, and she breathed on it, deep and long, like she was trying to understand who he was. It's going to be okay, Samuel whispered. You're not worthless. I know what that feels like, feeling worthless. But you're not. None of you are. The three fillies were now his. Samuel had nothing left but these three broken horses and $1,100. But as he looked at them, really looked at them, he felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. He felt hope.
They were scared and confused. Every bump in the road made them move nervously. Samuel had paid a man named Tom $5 to drive the wagon. Tom was old and did not ask many questions. He just drove the horses where Samuel told him to go. Samuel sat beside him, saying nothing, watching the road ahead. The ranch was 15 miles outside of town. It was not much, just a small house made of wood, a barn that was starting to fall apart, and about 30 acres of dry land. Samuel had rented it for 1 month for $20. The man who owned it did not care what Samuel did with the land. The man was old and sick and wanted to leave town soon anyway. When they arrived, the sun was starting to go down. The sky was orange and red and yellow. The shadows were long and dark. Tom helped Samuel pull the wagon to the barn. These are some sad-looking creatures, Tom said, looking at the three fillies. They just need time, Samuel replied quietly. Time and food and care, Tom said. You got plans for them? Samuel did not answer. He was not sure himself. Tom left after Samuel paid him. Samuel stood alone in the barn with three horses that did not know him. The dark one was pressing against the back wall, her eyes angry and full of fear. The light-colored one was standing frozen in the middle of the barn. The little rose one was looking at Samuel. Samuel opened the barn door wider. He made a gesture with his hand, inviting them to come out. Come on, he said softly. You can come out now. You're safe here. The dark filly snapped her teeth at the air. She did not move. The light filly did not move either. But the little rose filly walked forward step by step. She walked towards Samuel. Her legs were thin and weak. You could see that walking was hard for her. But she came anyway. Samuel stood very still. He did not want to scare her. The filly came close to him. She was smaller than the other two, much smaller. Her ribs were clear under her skin. Her bones seemed too big for her body. She looked up at Samuel's face. Then she breathed on him. She put her nose up to his shirt and breathed deeply. It was like she was trying to learn who he was. Like his smell was a language she understood. Samuel reached out very slowly. He put his hand on her neck. Her coat was rough and dirty, but underneath he could feel her bones and her strong muscles. This little filly was weak, yes, but not broken inside. Samuel could feel it. "Your name is Rose," Samuel whispered, "because you're small and delicate. But roses are strong flowers. They can grow anywhere, even in places with no water, even in hard ground. That's what you are, Rose. You're strong." Rose stood next to him for a long time. She did not move. She just breathed. Samuel turned and looked at the other two fillies. "Come on," he said to them. "This is home now. Come out and see." The dark filly finally walked out of the barn, but she stayed far away. The light filly came last, moving slowly like she was not sure her legs would work. The three fillies stepped into the pasture. It was not green and beautiful. The grass was brown and dry. There were rocks. There were dead trees. But it was open space. It was not a cage. The dark filly started to walk around, her head up, her ears moving. She was listening to everything. She was trying to understand this new place. The light filly stood in one spot for a long time, then moved very slowly to the fence. And Rose walked to the western edge of the pasture. She looked toward the mountains in the distance. The sun was going down behind those mountains. The light was golden and red. Rose stood there watching, her body still, her eyes quiet. Samuel watched her for a long time. That night, Samuel went back inside the barn. He had bought some dried hay from a man in town. It was not good hay. It was old and dusty, but it was what he could afford. He put the hay in 3 piles in the barn. The dark filly came and ate immediately. She was hungry. She did not care about anything else. The light filly came and sniffed the hay. She took a few bites, then walked away. Rose came last. She smelled the hay carefully. She looked up at Samuel like she was asking him something. Then she ate very slowly, just a little bit, like eating was difficult for her. Samuel sat on an old bench in the barn. He watched all 3 fillies. It was completely dark now, except for the lantern he had hung from a post. He thought about his father. He thought about how his father had always said that every horse had a story. Every horse had a reason for being in your life. Samuel's father had raised horses for 50 years. He had been kind to them. He had understood them in a way that most people never could. "I hope I'm like you, Father," Samuel said quietly to the empty barn. "I hope I can help these 3. Rose looked up from eating. She looked at Samuel. Then she walked over to him. She stood next to the bench and rested her head on his shoulder. Samuel did not move. He did not want to scare her. He sat very still while Rose stood beside him, her weight against his body, her warm breath on his neck. Outside the barn, the wind started to blow. It was a cool wind coming down from the mountains. Samuel could hear it moving through the trees. He could hear the other 2 fillies moving in the pasture, getting used to this new place. Rose stayed with him for almost an hour. Then she walked back to the hay and ate a little more. After that, she went to the corner of the barn and lay down on the dirt floor. She looked at Samuel once more, her eyes half closed. Then she closed them completely. The dark filly, who Samuel would later name Thunder, came and laid down in another corner. The light filly, who would become Spirit, stood by the fence all night, looking out at the land. Samuel went inside the small house. It had one room with a bed and a table and a chair. He had no blanket except an old coat. He lay on the bed, looking at the ceiling, thinking about everything he had lost and everything he might be able to save. Outside, the 3 fillies slept or stood guard or watched the mountains. Samuel Morgan and 3 worthless fillies had become a family. No one knew it yet. No one would have believed it. But it was happening anyway. In the darkness, in a small ranch in the middle of nowhere, something was beginning that would change everything. 3 months had passed since Samuel brought the 3 fillies to the ranch. 3 months of hard work. 3 months of small changes that nobody else could see. But Samuel saw them. Samuel felt them. The first change came with Thunder. Thunder was the dark one, the one who bit and kicked and showed her teeth whenever Samuel came near. On the first day, Samuel did not try to touch her. He just sat in the pasture near her. He sat for 2 hours, not moving, not talking. Thunder watched him the whole time, suspicious and angry. The next day, Samuel did the same thing. He sat. He was quiet. He did nothing. On the third day, Thunder moved closer. Not because she wanted to, but because her curiosity was stronger than her fear. Samuel's grandfather had taught him something long ago. He had said, "Samuel, horses are not born mean. People make them mean. If a horse is angry, it is because someone hurt them. Your job is not to force them to forget. Your job is to show them that you are different." So Samuel showed Thunder that he was different. He never raised his voice. Not once. Even when Thunder bit his arm and made it bleed, Samuel just sat down and said quietly, "I know. You're scared. That's okay." By the second week, Thunder stopped trying to bite Samuel when he got close. By the third week, she let him touch her neck. By the fourth week, she came when Samuel called her name. But the real change came in the fifth week. Samuel was sitting in the barn during a storm. The rain was loud on the roof. The wind was making everything shake. Thunder came and stood next to him. She did not sit down. She just stood there, right beside Samuel, letting him touch her neck and her shoulder. "You understand," Samuel whispered. "You know what it means to be scared. You know what it means to have no one. But we're not alone anymore, Thunder. We're here together." Thunder breathed deeply. Her angry eyes became softer. That day, Thunder became Samuel's horse. Spirit was different. Spirit was the light-colored filly, the one who would not move, the one who stood frozen like her legs had forgotten how to work. On the first day, Samuel tried to walk her. She took 3 steps and stopped. She stood there like a statue. Nothing Samuel did could make her move. So Samuel decided to do something different. Instead of pulling her, he walked beside her. Every single day, for 2 hours, Samuel and Spirit walked together. Just walked. No pulling. No forcing. Samuel talked to her while they walked. "Come on, Spirit," he would say. "Just one more step. That's all I'm asking. One more step." In the first week, they walked the same distance every day. 3 steps forward, then stop. In the second week, Spirit took 5 steps before stopping. In the third week, 10 steps. By the fourth week, Spirit was walking across the pasture. Not fast, not strong, but walking, really walking. Samuel celebrated by bringing Spirit an apple from the small orchard near the house. Spirit had never eaten an apple before. She looked at it like it was something dangerous. But then she smelled it. Her eyes changed. She ate the whole apple in 2 bites. After that, Spirit followed Samuel everywhere, looking for apples. By the end of the 3rd month, Spirit was trotting. Not running yet, but trotting. Samuel could feel the strength coming back to her legs. Her eyes were brighter. She was waking up to the world again. But Rose was different. Rose was different from both of them. Rose ate, but she ate very little. Rose walked, but she walked without purpose. Rose lived, but Samuel could see it in her eyes. She had not decided to truly live yet. Every single day, Rose followed Samuel everywhere. She was like a shadow. When Samuel worked on fixing the barn, Rose stood nearby watching. When Samuel cut wood, Rose watched. When Samuel dug wells, Rose watched. But she never seemed happy. She seemed like she was waiting for something that might never come. One afternoon, Samuel sat down on the ground, completely tired. He had worked since 5 o'clock in the morning. It was now 5 o'clock at night. He had fixed the fence, cut hay, hauled water, and fed the animals. He was so tired that he could not move. He sat on the ground and put his head in his hands. Rose came and stood next to him. She put her nose down on his shoulder, very gently, like she was trying to help him. Samuel started to cry. He cried for everything he had lost, for the ranch that was gone, for his father who had died, for his mother who was not there to see him, for the man he used to be, for all the dreams that had turned to dust. Rose did not move. She just stood there, letting him cry on her shoulder. When Samuel finally looked up, it was dark outside. The stars were coming out. Rose was still standing beside him, in the same position, not moving. "I don't know if I can do this," Samuel whispered. "I don't have much money. I don't have a future. I don't know how I'm going to feed you three. I don't know anything anymore." Rose just breathed, deep and slow. Samuel reached up and touched her face. "But I know that you understand sadness, Rose. I can see it in your eyes. We're the same, you and me. We're both broken." By the end of the third month, something had changed in Samuel. Thunder was no longer angry. She was strong and fast. She would run across the pasture with her mane flying. But when Samuel called, she came immediately. She had learned to trust. Spirit was no longer frozen. She was moving and running. Her legs were strong again. Her eyes were bright. She had learned to live again. And Rose was still the same. Still quiet. Still sad. Still following Samuel. Still eating very little. But one thing was different. Rose had started to stand on the fence line that faced west toward the mountains. Every single day, just before sunset, Rose would go to that spot and stand there, looking out, waiting. Samuel did not know what Rose was waiting for, but he knew it was important. One evening, Samuel went and stood beside Rose at the fence line. They stood together watching the sun go down behind the mountains. The sky turned orange and red and purple. "What are you waiting for, Rose?" Samuel asked softly. Rose turned and looked at Samuel. Her sad eyes looked directly into his eyes. As she looked back at the mountains, Samuel understood. Rose was waiting for something that might change her life. Something that might make her strong. Something that might make her believe again. Samuel did not know what that something was, but he decided in that moment that he would wait with her. Together, for as long as it took. Samuel woke up in the darkness. It was not yet morning. The sun had not come up, but something was wrong. He could feel it. The air felt different. The silence felt different. It was the kind of silence that comes before something bad happens. Samuel got up from his bed. He had been sleeping in the small house, but lately he had been sleeping in the barn more often. He wanted to be near the horses. He wanted to listen to them breathe. It made him feel less alone. But tonight he had slept in the house, and now something was wrong. Samuel took his rifle, an old gun that had belonged to his father. It was not very good, but it was what he had. He walked outside into the darkness, moving carefully. The stars were still bright above. The moon was almost gone. He walked toward the pasture. That is when he heard it. A sound he had never heard before. A sound that made his blood turn cold. It was the sound of a mountain lion. Mountain lions lived in the hills. Sometimes when the weather was very bad or when food was hard to find, they came down looking for animals to hunt. Samuel had heard stories about them. He had heard about ranches where mountain lions had killed cattle and horses, but he had never actually heard one. Now he was hearing one. Samuel moved faster. He kept the rifle ready. His heart was beating very hard. When he got to the pasture, he stopped. He could not believe what he was seeing. All three fillies were standing in a line. They were not running. They were not panicking. They were standing perfectly still, facing the same direction. And they were arranged like they were protecting each other. In front of them, in front of the other two fillies, was Rose. Behind Rose, half hidden in the darkness, Samuel could see it. The mountain lion. It was huge. Its body was long and muscular. Its eyes reflected the starlight. Its mouth was open, showing teeth. It was low to the ground, ready to jump. And Rose was standing between that lion and thunder and spirit. Rose was shaking. Her legs were trembling so badly that Samuel could see it even in the darkness. She was the smallest. She was the weakest. She was the one who could barely eat. She was the one who had not decided to live yet. And she was standing in the way of death. The mountain lion took a step closer. Its muscles tensed. It was getting ready to jump. It was going to kill Rose first, then take the other two horses. Samuel's mind went completely blank. He did not think. He did not plan. His body just moved. He started to run toward the lion, screaming. He screamed the loudest scream he had ever screamed in his entire life. He held the rifle up in the air and kept screaming and running. "Get away," he screamed. "Get away. Get away." The mountain lion was surprised. It had not expected a human. It had been hunting horses. It had not been expecting a man to come running out of the darkness, making noise, making chaos. For a moment, just for a moment, the lion hesitated. That was all Samuel needed. He kept running and screaming. He made sounds like he was crazy. He acted like he was more dangerous than the lion. The mountain lion turned. It looked at Samuel. Its eyes were wild and hungry and angry. But it was confused. The plan had changed. The easy hunt had become complicated. The lion took a step back, then another step. Samuel kept coming, kept screaming, kept waving the rifle. The mountain lion made a sound between a growl and a hiss. Then it turned and ran back toward the hills. It disappeared into the darkness like a ghost. Samuel stood there, breathing so hard that he thought his lungs would break. His legs were shaking. His hands were shaking. His whole body was shaking. For a moment, he could not move. Then he remembered Rose. Samuel turned around and ran to the 3 fillies. Rose had collapsed. She was lying on the ground. Her whole body was shaking. Her eyes were open, but they looked far away, like she was not really seeing anything. Samuel dropped to his knees beside her. He put his hands on her, checking for injuries. There was no blood. The lion had not touched her. Rose was still alive. "Rose," Samuel whispered. "Rose, can you hear me? Rose, you're okay. You're going to be okay." Rose's eyes moved. She saw Samuel. She looked at him for a long time. Then, very slowly, tears started to come from Samuel's eyes. Not just tears. Crying. Real crying. The kind of crying that comes from somewhere deep inside, from a place where all the pain and fear and love are kept together. Samuel put his face down next to Rose's face. He was crying so hard that he could barely breathe. "Why did you do that?" he asked. "Why did you stand there? You could have run. You could have saved yourself." Rose breathed. Her breath was warm on Samuel's face. "You chose them," Samuel said. "You chose to protect them, even though you were scared, even though you were weak, even though you could have run away and saved your own life. You chose to stand in front of danger." Samuel's hands were on Rose's neck. He could feel her heartbeat. It was fast and strong and alive. "You're not broken," Samuel said. "You were never broken. You were just waiting. You were waiting for the moment when you could show us what you really are." Thunder came over and stood next to Samuel and Rose. She put her nose down and breathed on Rose's face. Spirit came too. She stood on the other side of Rose, watching her carefully. The 3 fillies and the man stayed there together in the darkness, waiting for the sun to come up. Samuel kept his hands on Rose. He kept talking to her. "I found you when I was broken," he said, "and you found me. And today you showed me something I forgot. You showed me that the weakest things can be the strongest, that the smallest voice can be the loudest. That love is stronger than fear." As Samuel talked, Rose's breathing became slower. Her shaking became less. Her eyes became clearer. She was still weak. She was still thin. She was still the smallest of the 3. But something had changed inside her. Something had woken up. The sun started to come up in the east. The sky became lighter. The stars started to disappear. The darkness started to go away. And in that new light, Samuel could see Rose's eyes more clearly. They were not sad anymore. They were brave. Rose recovered. Not all at once. Not in one day or one week. But day by day, step by step, Rose came back to life. In the first week after the mountain lion attack, Rose could not stand for very long. Her legs would give out. She would have to lie down. Samuel would sit beside her for hours, just being there, just being quiet. But Rose was eating now, really eating, not just a few bites. She was eating with hunger. She was eating with purpose. Her body knew that she had a reason to be strong now. In the second week, Rose started to move around more. She would get up and walk across the barn. Not far, just a few steps. But each step was stronger than the step before. In the third week, something amazing happened. Rose went to the pasture and began to run. It was not a fast run. It was not a long run. But she was running. Her legs were moving. Her heart was beating hard. And when she stopped, she was breathing heavy and her eyes were bright. Samuel watched from the fence, and he smiled for the first time in months. By the end of the month, Rose was a different horse. Her coat, which had been dull and dirty, became shiny and beautiful. The pale brown color that had looked sad now looked like gold in the sunlight. Her ribs, which had shone through her skin like a skeleton, began to disappear under healthy muscle. But the biggest change was in her eyes. Her eyes, which had been empty and sad, became full of light. They became full of purpose. They became the eyes of a horse that had decided to live. Samuel's life changed too. The word about Samuel spread through the countryside. People began to talk about the man who had saved 3 worthless fillies. They talked about how he had fixed up his small ranch. They talked about how he worked harder than any man they had ever seen. A rancher named Mr. Coleman came to visit Samuel one afternoon. Mr. Coleman owned a big ranch about 5 miles away. He had heard the stories about Samuel and wanted to see for himself. When Mr. Coleman saw Thunder, Spirit, and Rose running in the pasture, he stopped and stared. "I don't believe it," he said. "Those are the same fillies that came through the auction house. The ones everyone said were worthless." "Yes," Samuel said simply. "What did you do to them?" Mr. Coleman asked. Samuel thought for a moment. "I just showed them that they mattered. I showed them they were not alone. The rest, they did it themselves." Mr. Coleman looked at Samuel for a long time. Then he said, "I need a man, a good man, a man who understands horses. Will you work for me? I can pay you. I can give you a place to live. I can help you get back on your feet." Samuel looked at his small ranch. He looked at the 3 fillies. He looked at Mr. Coleman. "I need to stay here," Samuel said. "These horses need me, and I need them." Mr. Coleman nodded like he understood. "Then I will buy them from you. I will pay good money for all 3. They are exceptional horses. Any rancher would want them." Samuel shook his head. "They are not for sale." Years passed. Samuel never left his small ranch, but his ranch grew. He saved every penny he made from doing work for other ranchers. He fixed the barn. He built a new fence. He planted trees. He made the land beautiful again. People came from miles around to see the 3 fillies. They came to see Rose, the horse that had stood against a mountain lion. They came to see Thunder, the angry horse that had learned to trust. They came to see Spirit, the broken horse that had learned to run again. Stories were told about them in towns and villages. The story of the worthless fillies grew bigger and bigger. But Samuel never talked about the stories. He just cared for his horses. He rode them. He loved them. He kept them safe. Rose became Samuel's favorite. She was the fastest. She was the strongest. But more than that, she understood Samuel in a way that the other 2 did not. When Samuel felt sad, Rose would come and stand next to him. When Samuel was happy, Rose would run with joy. They were connected by something deeper than words. One quiet evening, years after the mountain lion attack, Samuel sat on the fence watching the sun go down. Rose came and stood beside him. She rested her head on his shoulder, just like she had done so many times before. "Do you remember?" Samuel asked her. "Do you remember the auction house? Do you remember when everyone said you were worthless?" Rose breathed deeply. Her warm breath moved Samuel's hair. "You were never worthless," Samuel continued. "You were just waiting for someone to believe in you. Just like I was waiting for someone to believe in me." Samuel reached up and touched Rose's face. Her coat was smooth and shiny. Her eyes were bright and alive. "We saved each other," Samuel whispered. "That's what really happened. You didn't just save me from the mountain lion. You saved me from myself. You showed me that even when everything is broken, even when everything seems lost, there is still reason to hope." People would ask Samuel, "How did you do it? How did you turn 3 worthless horses into legendary horses?" And Samuel would always give the same answer. "I didn't do anything special," he would say. "I just showed them they mattered. I just gave them time. I just loved them." The strength was always inside them. Sometimes horses, sometimes people, they just need someone to believe in them before they can believe in themselves. By the time Samuel was an old man, the story of Rose and Thunder and Spirit had become famous. It was told in saloons and at dinner tables. It was told to children before bedtime. It was a story about the weakest becoming the strongest. It was a story about never giving up. It was a story about love. Samuel's ranch grew into one of the best ranches in the whole region. Young men came to work for Samuel to learn how to care for horses the right way. Samuel taught them not just about horses, but about patience, kindness, and believing in broken things. Rose lived for 27 years. She had foals of her own, young horses that inherited her courage and her strength. Those horses became famous too. People said that Rose's bloodline was special. People said that you could see the legend in their eyes. When Rose finally passed away, old and full of years, Samuel sat beside her grave for an entire day. He did not cry. He had made peace with life long ago. Instead, he sat there remembering everything. He remembered the auction house. He remembered the mountain lion. He remembered the girl who decided to stand between danger and love. On Samuel's tombstone, after he died many years later, they carved these words. Here lies Samuel Morgan. He was a man who believed in worthless things. And worthless things became legends because he believed. And beneath those words, they carved the image of a horse. A horse with bright eyes and a strong heart. A horse named Rose.